second roundtable about different developer experience things, what bothers developers, what helps us in our daily life in developing an InterSystems technology stack. So really great to see you here. And today's topic is about source control. So this is what we use every day. So everything that we develop, we need to store somewhere, then we need to maintain history, and ideally, if it works smoothly with no losses and it's very convenient and it rather helps, then gives us a headache, right? So this is the ideal picture with the source control processes. And nevertheless, there are several approaches how this could happen, what are the best approaches, and this is why we met today. So I will like share my screen for a bit just to set up agenda. So yes, so the topic is I'll do it like a slideshow maybe. So we have a wonderful topic today. It's like to Git or not to Git. Just to say that there are different approaches with source control. So we I just set up topics. This could go in a different schedule. So Git, just few words about Git. It's today is 21st century, 22nd year, and in this year, maybe Git became the most known source control in the world. We even have two, maybe the most popular repositories for the source code in the cloud. It is one is a GitHub, and the second most popular is a GitLab. Also has both have the name of Git in the name of this of the cloud service, and this just tells that maybe this one dominates. This source control dominates. But if we look into the history, and actually if we check what also exists in the market, we can name SVN, Subversion, Mercurial still in the place, and actually this is not everything. So I mean here we have George James company on the call that has and George James they has their own very successful source control tool, which will be presented today. And actually, I suggest we will start from maybe from George James. So if you don't mind, George, yeah. So if you do, so the idea is that we will invite experts in source control who are on this call just to share their approach, their like best practices, and for not Git, we will invite George James to present the approach. So 10 minutes, no more, and some time for discussion. Then we will have approach with Git like for a client, and server approaches with working with source code as well. Okay, let's go. I will stop sharing, and I invite George James to present their vision, their product for source control with InterSystems technology.
You muted.
Yes, we see source control of interoperability productions. We can see that. Yeah, perfect.
Sorry, I was muted. I'd like to focus on one particular aspect of source control, which is managing productions, because that's an area that a lot of users have particular issues with. So what I'd like to show you is a couple of new additions to Daltangi, which is our source control product. One addition is the introduction of a new client integration, and this is for the production page of the management portal. We already use the source control hooks to implement a client integration for other parts of the management portal for HL7 and business rules and so on. But the actual production settings page has always been a problem area for users. So we've introduced a client integration that deals with that in a different way. And to complement that, we've implemented a component driver that goes alongside all our other component drivers, that classes and routines and files and business process rules and all the other kinds of things that you need to manage. These two in conjunction provide a nice way of managing production settings. So why do we need to do this? Well, the problem is that the implementation of productions is InterSystems IRIS is by use of a monolithic production class definition. So a single class definition that contains all the information for production. Now this is really nice and keeps everything all self-contained in place and works really well for small productions where you've only got half a dozen services and configuration items and so on. But as you scale up, and there are a lot of very large productions out there these days, when you get to the state where you've got many hundreds of services, then you find that this becomes unworkable because several people will want to be changing different parts of the production simultaneously and releasing at different times and so on. So the solution to this is to break, for configuration management purposes, break the production class into its constituent parts and manage each one of those parts, each service, each business operation, and so on, as a first-class component for source control purposes. So what I'd like to do is just provide a very quick demonstration of this in operation. So what we have here is I've got 3 tabs. I have a connection to the development server, the test server, and the live server. And you'll see on the live server here, we have a production running, and you'll see that we actually have an error. So let's look at the process that's involved in using source control to correct this error. So the first thing we want to do is have a look at this and find out what the error is. So we go and look in the message log, and we see that the message says directory does not exist. Okay, and that's an easy problem to fix because I know that the directory name should be demo/loan/find rate rather than find rates. So let's go ahead and try and fix that. So over on our development server, what you'll see is that we have the configuration items here are color-coded, and the red color means that we've got a component here that's not registered with source control, and the green color here means that we've got items that are checked out, and these are being worked on as part of the project. And you'll also see that over here we have a button which is the Daltangi source control integration. So this is our client integration to the production configuration page. And so what we can do if we want to work on this item here If we go and try and change it, we'll see that it's set to read only, and that's because it's not checked out. So we can't inadvertently change it, but we can check it out, and we can do that by clicking on this button here. And this takes us into our Deltangy checkout dialog, and we can select here a change request that I prepared earlier to deal with this particular problem, and I can then select that, and that does a checkout. So now I'm in a position where I can actually edit this field here and change the file path to that, and I'll apply that change. So that's our fix done. So now we want to test it. So again, I can select this dialog box and select this time the test option, and this will move just that configuration item from our development server onto our test server. So we'll go and do that, and then if we switch to our test server and refresh the production, then you'll see that the red light has gone green. That means that we've fixed that problem. So we're now good to check this in. You can do like that. And we can even deploy it to production from here. So deploy it to the live server. So select the deploy option, click OK. And now if we go back to our live tab and refresh and update, then we'll see that that problem has been fixed. So what we've done there is basically decompose the elements of the production class into individual items. In each configuration item is then managed separately, and that provides us with the ability to manage those configuration items just like any other component that we would manage. And with that, you get all the benefits of being able to do diffs and look at history and identify why things were changed and when they were changed and why and so on. And so that really concludes my presentation of just showing how we address this particular aspect.
Thank you, George. Thank you, George.
Okay.
That's pretty impressive. And I shared the link to Deltangy in the chat. Just a few quick questions. So I suppose Deltangy supports not only interoperability solutions, not only integrations like production, but everything that that can be developed with IRIS. Am I wrong?
Correct. Anything that moves, we have a solution for it.
Perfect. And speaking of the artifacts of the source control, so when then commit happens, where do we store this?
It's stored in a repository.
In the database, yeah.
Yeah, in a repository.
In IRIS, and this repository sits in IRIS database, right?
It sits in an IRIS database, yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So and is it possible like to export these artifacts? I mean, to files? Yeah, also.
Yes, we can export it in a variety of different formats. Usually the default is the native format for that type of component. So typically UDL or XML or some similar format.
I think though it's important to realize that in a fully Deltangied environment, you really don't need to export your components because you're using Deltangy to manage the component right from when the component comes into existence in a development namespace all the way out to production servers via however many layers of test and UAT and all the rest. And you do that with whatever workflow is appropriate for your development organization. You know, you don't have to have a dev, test, prod architecture if really what you want to do is do it all in a much simpler way, or if you actually need to have a much more complex configuration, then you have that too. So it's all very configurable for you.
Yeah, I would just say that generally you don't need to do it, but if you did want to do it, then you can export things because that's part of the standard functionality. But Evgeny, why would you want to export something? What do you plan to do with it when you're exporting something? What's your interest?
Well, I can give one answer to that. And I was going to also ask a question if there's any way to automate that exportation. My team works in VS Code. There are members of the team, if they're making a small change, they prefer to just pull up the production class in VS Code, make the small tweak, save it back.
Okay, so you can do that, but you don't need to do any kind of exporting or anything like that. You just open the production class in VS Code, edit it.
Well, let me clarify. We do server-side editing too, I'm sorry, client-side editing, not server-side editing.
Yeah, so there's no problem with doing server-side editing if you use Syringy for the Syringy plugin for VS Code. It will edit the class on the server.
What about editing client? Let me clarify. We do client-side editing. I misspoke myself.
Okay, yeah, if you want to use the other extension and do client side, then you can do that, but you still have source control. And Deltangy will take care of putting it into your namespace, the appropriate namespace for you.
I guess I'd like to understand from Richard why you would want to edit client side in your particular context. You know, if you
well, 80,
is it habit?
Say 85% of the time I do not. I use the management portal. I have some team members who like to work in the class directly. One of the reasons is if they're copying a very similar item, all the configuration and just changing the name of it and some settings, they just copy a whole block of XML down, make the small change, save it back.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good use case for why you would want to use VS Code to edit the production class.
Server side, though, I mean, the whole point is there is no need for copying down and copying back up when you're using Deltangy. You know, all the controls are taken care of server side, so you can just connect to the server and make the changes directly against the production class, copy and paste, edit, whatever.
Again, we're doing client side editing, so that.
Right, but the question was, what's the need for that? Why? What's the need for that in this scenario?
I'd have to think about that. Right now, we're working in separate Docker environments, so I suppose there wouldn't be that much of a need. But if we ever transition to a dev prod or dev test prod environment where we're all working on the same server, then it would become more important to have our code separate. But anyway.
I'd actually argue. Wait, Richard. Sorry,
I can't give you a good answer, Ben.
I just want to clarify. If you get to the point of shared development environments with dev test live, that actually makes it all the more important to use server-side source control hooks. That's actually that's the recipe.
Again, my
for
practice is to
side.
do this in the management portal. I'm just raising an issue that I know some of my colleagues would have run into. I wouldn't run into it because my only problem is I forget to export it. So that's why I was asking if there's an automation of the export process, but I guess we wouldn't need that with Deltangy.
Yeah. If you are using Deltangy, then it takes care of all that for you, whether you want to edit server side or client side. Deltangy will look after all of that. So,
colleagues, yeah.
I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Scott, please go ahead.
I was going to ask if you have multiple servers, so say we have our separate tests from our separate dev, where does Deltangy live? Does it do you set up another server for deltang to stay separate from the two, or how does that work?
You can set it up on a separate server, or you can set it up on the development server. That's usually the two choices that are most of our customers go with, either hosting it on the same server as development is done, or then set up a completely separate server that is dedicated to deltang. But it doesn't really matter as long as you've got accessibility. You can set it up pretty much wherever you want it to be.
Okay, colleagues, I suggest we go with
And
more
you can roll back if you need to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
George, thank you for your presentation with deltang. Actually, we invite to follow up with questions for the dedicated deltang webinar that will be when, like, next week. So that will be very soon. Colleagues, please share the link for the webinar. And now I invite Timothy Leavitt to demonstrate another approach for with source control with Git and server side. Tim, please. The real Tim, please now. Sorry.
All right, I'll share my screen. All right. So I guess someone's going to talk about client-side Git, right?
Yes, sure.
Yep. All right. So I think is it worth going? You think it's worth going into why would you use client-side versus server-side source control? Or
look, actually, we have Dmitry also on the call who could demo the client side, but I wanted maybe after. But actually, if you want to switch, I'm fine. So if you want to go first,
I'll just talk about my thing then.
Okay.
So we've done internally we use Perforce at InterSystems, and I'd be happy to talk about that later if there's time as well. And we have server-side source control capabilities for that. And what we've tried to do within my team is kind of translate that to server-side source control best practices with Git. So the use case here is you have multiple developers connecting to a remote shared development environment typically, or if you have people who still insist on using Studio for some reason, and that's a separate problem. But if you want to be able to support both interchangeably, then you really need the server-side source control. So that's the 5-second why would we use server-side source control. That and the interoperability editors and such. And I'm just going to say we don't have anything quite as cool as what John demonstrated. The granular production element control is really cool. But what I'm about to show you will work in VS Code, in Studio, and in the management portal editors. So one of the issues that we have, Git is intended to be distributed. Everybody has their own copy of things, and they're working on their own local copy. And it kind of flies in the face of that a little bit to have a Git repo on the server that's shared by a whole bunch of people. So Git doesn't really have inherent support for that kind of concurrency control over files. I'm editing this thing, you're editing this. We can't step on each other's toes. So what we've done in this extension, which is available through Open Exchange, through ZPM, is add that kind of support for multiple users working with the same Git repo on the remote server, and also added a whole bunch of UI around it so that as you're interacting with your code from VS Code or Studio or the management portal, you don't need to go into that remote server and run a whole bunch of Git commands. So what this looks like, so there's this server source control menu in VS Code. I can pull up settings that apply to the entire namespace. So the source control class is configured at the namespace level. It'll show me which Git version I'm running. There's a default folder that is used for the local Git repo. If you want to be able to interact with a remote, you can set up an SSH private key file that is used to authenticate, and this is important, this authenticates the server, the IRIS instance against Git. So this authenticates not a specific user, but the server, and we have kind of on the long-term roadmap being able to do more controlled per user authentication, but that is a bit of a catch. And then here we can set up a bunch of mappings to say within the Git repository root, this is the /csp/user web application maps to csp/user. Classes go under CLS. Classes starting with unit tests go under test. There's a separate case there. And include files go under inc. Macroutines go under RTN. And this is kind of a standard structure. I know there are kind of different conventions. This is what we tend to use within InterSystems. But if you wanted to map things differently to fit your convention, you can do that. The other thing that's really cool with this is it's, I'd say, package manager aware. So right now I'm using ISFS server-side editing mode in VS Code. I've got 3 folders here, just everything in the namespace, and then the package manager will create a studio project for you, and you can just filter to that in your folder definitions in VS Code, which is really neat. So really my use case here is I'm working on multiple package manager, multiple projects all using the package manager in the same namespace. And I want them all to go back to the proper Git repo, and that's handled. So if I just pull up some random class, I can see I can add this and then pull up the UI and see I have these 2 files that are in my working copy. This one's staged, and I can see actually that these are another user's files that are in the current working copy. So if I need to kind of break the glass and say I'm taking ownership of this because someone else is working on this remote server and went on vacation for a week, I can do that. But generally, there is a clear separation of what I'm working on, what other people are working on server. I can see the history of the branch and commit from here, etc. And if I switch to a different file that's, say, part of the Git source control package itself, and I pull that up, I see everything for a different Git repo that's on the server I'm talking to. And I can see all the different branches and tags, and so for most of the basic things I would need to do, I don't need to go into the Git command line on the remote server to actually interact with that. So that if you end up needing to do a merge, yeah, you're going to need to go in there and edit things manually. We don't have a UI for that at this point, and that's not really on the roadmap. So in short,
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, in short, multi-user support for remote Git repos with service and source control. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me, or we can maybe take some now.
Yeah, my quick question as always, is it possible to? Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask, how does this work in, like, if you're doing development within the management portal instead of Visual Studio Code?
Yeah, so if I pull up management portal for this instance, go to interoperability, pick a namespace, configure production. There's this menu here. Oh, I have to create a new production. So, oh, what is this? So I can go to source control, launch the UI from here, same behavior. We'll add the production to source control. And I can see production classes is there and empty. So it isn't as deep integration as what John was demoing, but it's really through this menu.
Tim, I will go with my regular question. Is it possible to export it into files, I mean, from this menu for the productions, for example?
So what do you mean by that?
I mean, if I want to have the production elements that were changed during my development session as a set of exported changed files, then to be pushed to some like GitHub server repository, for example.
Yeah, so it is just a single class export. We're not talking of different production items.
So you mean
so
single class? It's sorry. Go ahead.
So if I look at in this case, the remote server is on my own machine. But if I can see demo.newProduction is here, and pull that up. So under the hood, there is export to files on the server's file system, but for the production specifically, it is just a single production. It is a single class export, not granular.
Okay. So it's everything in one class. Yeah.
Yep.
We have a question from Jose Carlos Ruiz. Is it possible to add new objects type as lookup tables?
Yes, there is. You can, any Studio abstract document type, you can, like, I would just go into the right one. If I go into settings, I can just say I'll add a new mapping for the LUT extension, and we'll put those in LUT/. I'll save that. And if I was to then go and define a lookup table and then say source control add. No, you got to save it first. And same as before, I've got my lookup table exported to XML there.
Cool. Yes. Do we have any more questions?
Question about the setup. I was going to ask, what if, like, some of us are already using Git with VS Code? What if you want to maintain your file structure that you have on production? So, you know, everything's located under a certain package and you want to maintain that. Is that possible to add that to this Git application? I mean, to use an existing one?
You just need to,
like,
configure
here you have, okay, I want to put everything under class. And
so if you had a different structure, you just configure it in these mappings. There is limited flexibility there in terms of like, if you have file and folder names that are dramatically different from the actual names of the files you're working with. But I think that really wouldn't be a best practice anyway, because it's confusing.
Mm-hmm. Tim, a quick question. And so you added LUT stands for lookup tables. So lookup tables will go separate, not as separate files, but not into this one class export. Yes.
So each lookup table would be its own XML export.
But okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe any more questions in the chat or out loud? So no problem. We can like have an open discussion about that, about all the approaches. And now I invite Dmitry Maslennikov to present yet another approach with the source control. It will be Git and client. So Dmitry.
We can hear you, Dmitry.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. So client side way of working is just working with just simple files on your local machine or your local file system, and so basically you have just files. You use a simple, very simple way of using Git. Mostly, if you work with this code, it's out of the box, have everything. Clone repository, manage it, switch between branches, create new branches, and also actually like what team showed for server side. If you would you wanted to see changes, differences between your version of code and the version in source control, you would need to use some as something special UI for it, but VS Code have already implemented inside. So if I do some changes, it marks me that like I have new lines with this green, or like changes like this, but all these shows that I have changes in the file. And in this tab, I have list of changes that I already have expected to be pushed. So I change this version of IRIS in Docker environment. So I see what I actually changed. And also interesting thing, like, yeah, like there is integration, full integration with Git, so you can see changes who made it. Interesting class. Let me change it. Maybe something. With more changes, more after. You know me, only me. But anyway, so different commits from each year and so on. So it's a like cool integration with Git, and you can see what's done. And in fact, yeah, there is an issue integration with changes in production. It's quite complicated here. So because like how it works, it's only files. So you change these files, and Git can follow this change. But if you change it through management portal, it goes other way, and this code don't see these changes. But in fact, it's actually possible to merge two approaches, like Teams way or like something like this way, with probably like simple source control class like file export and so on, and configure it to export any changes for followed class, like if you want to follow like production class. You change them only through UI, so you just follow only these classes, and all these changes will be exported to the same folder as followed in VS Code, and it will appear because it's just a file. It will appear in the same place, and Git will follow the changes, and you will see these changes as well. So as a mix, it's possible to use, but you in this case it means that the client-side editing is best way is when you work in on your own instance of IRIS. It can be you can work together with other developers with code still have this check. So if you change some file, some class which already changed it by some other developer through like Studio or some other way on the same server, this code will show it because you'll see the differences in changes in the timestamp files, and it will offer you to compare differences. But anyway, it means that you will have the whole changes even if it was changed by other developers. You have to have it on your side as well. So not
Dima,
good to have it.
sorry, just a quick question. Can you demonstrate the change, please? I mean, maybe if I even suggest a quick. You say that you can easily share the work with the client approach with other developers. I suggest you take the template from Open Exchange, like the simplest. Make change.
I don't know if it's really needed.
And I will change. I will change the. I mean, I will follow you up and change and make the change to showing that's how it works. Just and it will be in a scope of 1 minute. So you copy what Dima is doing. He's copied the Git line of the repository on GitHub. Yes, and then you go to clone or open new window in VS Code. Click clone. Then you find where it will be cloned on your laptop. Is it cloned, Dima?
Not yet. Cloning. Yes, so clone it. So I have all the files.
So make like a quick change, for example, in a read or in some class, like some comment, anything. For this, just for this demonstration, yes. Yes. Then this change is automatically in the changes. So now Dima makes commit. Can you also show the change? Okay, no worries. Okay, you did git push, and please share the link to this URL in chat. I will do the same exercise right now.
About changes, I can go here and see
Okay,
previous
let's see
changes.
that.
Right from this.
Could you please share the link to this URL in the chat? I will show that I can contribute to. The URL in the link. I mean the URL to the project. Okay, so now I will share the screen. Okay, and can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I will start a new window. Then I open this. Oh, sorry. So I open this GitHub. Then I will copy this line here. Oh, I need to sign in, sorry. Moment. Yes, signed in. So I click this button to get this line to connect, to clone this repository. Then I click this button in VS Code. I paste it here. So I put the location of the folder. Okay, I'm in the office, and so I need to switch to
He's a brave man. He changes his internet connection while screen sharing on Zoom. Will we ever see him again? Yay.
yes. So now it's cloned. And I see, Dima, what was the class? It was an API?
API.
Yes, you see this comment, all good. I changed it. This is source control round table. Save it. Here I immediately see all the changes, like you see, and I can commit here as well. So for round table, yes, and I sync it, and it will be. Yes, I cannot do this because I need to go with a pull request, but because I'm not the owner of this project. But you got the idea, yes. So if I get some rights to push this repository, this change will be immediately in the repository. So it's just together with Dima, with Dmitry, we made a quick demo how this could work with client Git and VS Code and InterSystems. So okay, I will stop sharing.
I want to say one more thing.
Dima, before you start, just because about the requirement, we still have 10 minutes for everything, and we need like 5 minutes for the surprise. So we still have time, right? So if you want to say, please, if you can.
Yes.
In 2 minutes. Yeah.
So in addition to just what I showed, I can do small changes if I see that something can be fixable very fast in any repository. GitHub have this very cool feature. When you press the dot key on your keyboard, it will show you this code right there. This is the same repository, and it also supports syntax highlighting. So our object code will highlight it. I can install any extension, so I have InterSystems extension installed here. It doesn't work with IRIS because it's very simple version without any backend, so it's just for editing. It will not compile, but I still can do changes, and it works the same. So it also shows the changes. I can commit it again, and it will go to GitHub. So I change the feed and go back to the repository and see that I have this commit again. And
Dima, thank you. This is really amazing. If you could share this approach in the chat, would be great. And I suggest we now go for our experimental tool that just for 5 minutes. And if you like this, so let's we will introduce in our next roundtables. So let's do that, colleagues. Volodya, Oля, what do you want to do?
Please join the breakout rooms to have a conversation on any topic. I'll continue the topic we discussed.